Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you have found your way here to this quiet space we can share. Before we begin, I'd like you to check in with yourself, just for a moment. How are you feeling right now in this moment? Is there a tightness in your shoulders, a busyness in your mind, a sense of being pulled in a dozen different directions at once? If you feel any of that, know that it is okay. You have arrived at a safe harbor. For the time that we share together, there is nothing else you need to do, nowhere else you need to be, and no one else you need to become. Your only task is to allow yourself the grace of this moment, to listen and to breathe. This channel, this space we are creating, is called The Empty Boat. The name comes from a timeless Zen story, which we will explore together on our journey today. It is a story about discovering that the source of our frustration, our anger, and our turmoil often comes not from the world outside, but from the stories we tell ourselves within. It's about realizing that we have the power to choose peace moment by moment. Today, we will embark on a voyage, a journey through 25 timeless stories, 25 whispers of ancient wisdom. Each one is a stepping stone, leading us closer to the calm, clear center of our own being. They are not complicated lessons to be memorized, but simple truths to be felt. So I invite you now, find a comfortable position. Allow your body to feel supported, to feel heavy and relaxed. Dim the lights if you wish, and when you are ready, gently close your eyes. Let the sound of my voice be a gentle current, guiding your boat into calm and peaceful waters. Let us begin. Part 1. The Empty Boat. We begin our journey with the story that gives this space its name. It is a story about a man, a boat, and a moment of profound realization. Imagine a man, perhaps a young monk, seeking solitude to deepen his meditation. His teacher advises him to take a small boat and row to the very center of a vast, misty lake. There, in the perfect quiet, he can find the stillness he seeks. The man does as he is told. The oars dip silently into the glassy water, leaving gentle ripples in his wake. The shore fades behind him into a soft gray mist. When he reaches the center, he drops a small anchor, settles into his seat, closes his eyes, and begins to follow his breath. The air is cool. The silence is absolute. A deep sense of peace begins to settle over him. He sits for a long time, drifting in this ocean of tranquility. Then, suddenly, he feels a sharp jolt, a bump. Another boat has collided with his. His eyes fly open. Irritation, hot and immediate, flashes through him. His perfect peace is shattered. Who could be so careless, so thoughtless, as to crash into him in the middle of this vast, empty lake? He turns, ready to shout, ready to unleash his frustration upon the foolish boatman. But as he turns, he sees that the other boat is empty. It must have come loose from its moorings on the shore, and the gentle, unseen currents of the lake simply drifted it into his path. There is no one to blame. There is no one to be angry at. In that single, silent moment, the man understands. The boat is empty. The anger that arose within him, this hot, powerful, disruptive force, where did it come from? It didn't come from the boat. The boat had no intention, no malice. It was simply an object, moved by the water. The anger, he realizes with breathtaking clarity, came from within him. He created it. It was his own. This story is a profound lesson in responsibility for our own inner state. So often, we believe our anger, our hurt, our frustration is caused by external events and people. The driver who cuts us off in traffic, the partner who says a thoughtless word, the colleague who takes credit for our work. We see them as the source of our suffering. We load their boat with intention, with malice, with blame. But what if we could learn to see them as empty boats? This doesn't mean their actions are right or that we should tolerate disrespect. It is not about passivity. It is about wisdom. It is about recognizing that the external event is merely a trigger, a bump from an empty boat. The emotional reaction that follows, the storm of anger, the lingering resentment, the narrative of victimhood, is our own creation. It happens inside our own minds. And this realization is the most empowering freedom we can ever find. Because if we are the ones who create our own inner turmoil, then we are also the ones who can choose to uncreate it. We can choose to let it go. When you feel that flash of irritation rising, you can pause. You can take a single conscious breath. And you can ask yourself the question, is this an empty boat? Is this person's comment truly about me? Or is it a reflection of their own inner state, their own unseen currents of fear, insecurity, or pain? Is this situation a personal attack, or is it simply an impersonal event, a boat that has drifted into my path? This simple question creates a space, a pause between the event and your reaction. In that space, you can find your freedom. You can choose not to generate the anger. You can choose not to take the poison. You can choose to preserve your own inner peace. The boat is empty. The power to create calm or chaos lies not in the boat, but within you. For a moment now, just breathe. And consider a recent time you felt angered or frustrated by someone's actions. See it in your mind. Now, try to see their boat as empty. See their action not as a personal attack, but as something driven by currents you cannot see. Feel the shift inside you as you release the blame. This is the first step. Part 2. A cup of tea. Having seen that our reactions are our own, let us now explore what fills our minds, leaving no room for peace. This brings us to a simple yet profound story about a cup of tea. A university professor, a man renowned for his knowledge and intellect, came to visit a wise old Zen master. He came not to learn, but to show off his own understanding. "I have come to inquire about Zen," the professor announced. But before the master could speak, the professor launched into a long monologue, sharing his own extensive theories, quoting scriptures, and explaining his complex philosophical ideas. The Zen master listened patiently, smiling gently. While the professor talked on and on, the master began to prepare tea. He set out 2 simple, beautiful cups. As the professor continued his endless stream of words, the master calmly began to pour hot tea into his guest's cup. He poured until the cup was full, and then he kept pouring. The hot tea overflowed, spilling out of the cup and into the saucer. Still, the master kept pouring. The tea ran over the saucer and onto the table. The professor, finally stopping his lecture, cried out in alarm, "Stop! The cup is full! It can't hold anymore!" The Zen master stopped pouring, looked at the professor with kind, clear eyes, and said softly, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" This story is not just about a professor. It is about all of us. We walk through life with our cups filled to the brim. They are filled with our beliefs, our prejudices, our past experiences, our judgments, and our unshakable opinions about how things are and how they ought to be. We are so full of our own knowing that there is no room for anything new to enter. We listen to others not to understand, but to find flaws in their arguments, to formulate our own rebuttal. We experience a new situation not with fresh eyes, but through the heavy filter of our past. Our cup is already full. To learn, to grow, to find peace, we must first be willing to empty our cup. This is an act of profound humility and courage. It means being willing to say, "I don't know." It means being willing to suspend our judgments, even for a moment, and simply observe. It means approaching life with a beginner's mind. A beginner's mind is a mind that is open, eager, and free of preconceptions. To a beginner, the possibilities are many. To an expert, they are few. When we adopt a beginner's mind, the world opens up to us. We see beauty we had overlooked. We find solutions we had dismissed. We feel compassion for people we had judged. Emptying your cup doesn't mean abandoning your intelligence or your experience. It means holding them lightly. It means recognizing that your knowledge is a tool, not a cage. The tea master was not asking the professor to become ignorant, but to become open. Consider the relationships in your life. Do you enter conversations with your partner or your children with your cup already full, assuming you know what they will say and what they mean? Try emptying your cup. Listen with the sole intention of understanding their world. The results can be transformative. Consider a problem you are facing at work or at home. Are you approaching it with the same old solutions, the same old frustrations? Try emptying your cup. Ask yourself, what if everything I think I know about this is wrong? What would I see then? The practice of emptying our cup is a daily one. It is the practice of letting go of the need to be right. It is the practice of choosing curiosity over certainty. It is the quiet, humble act of creating space within ourselves. For it is only in the emptiness, in the open space, that true wisdom can be poured. Take a breath now. And imagine your mind is a teacup. What is it filled with today? Worries, judgments, plans? Gently, in your mind's eye, tip the cup over. Let it all pour out onto the soft earth. Feel the lightness, the spaciousness that remains. This is your beginner's mind. Rest in it. Part 3. The Farmer's Luck. Once we have created space by emptying our cup, we are confronted with a new challenge, our relentless need to label everything that happens as either good or bad. This brings us to the timeless story of a farmer and his profound wisdom. In a small ancient village lived an old farmer. He was poor but content, and his most prized possession was a beautiful horse. One day, the horse broke through its fence and ran away into the mountains. Immediately, all the farmer's neighbors rushed to his house to console him. "Oh, what terrible luck!" they cried. "Your only horse is gone. This is a great misfortune." The old farmer listened, nodded calmly, and replied with just 2 words. "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" The neighbors went away, shaking their heads at the old man's strange response. A few days later, a miracle occurred. The farmer's horse returned from the mountains, and it was not alone. It had led a herd of 12 wild, magnificent stallions back with it. The villagers, hearing the news, ran back to the farmer's house, this time to celebrate. "What incredible good fortune!" they exclaimed. "You were poor, and now you have a whole herd of horses. You are a wealthy man. This is truly a blessing." The old farmer stood amongst the powerful horses, smiled his gentle smile, and replied again, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" His son, eager to help his father, began the difficult task of taming the wild horses. While riding one of the stallions, he was thrown violently to the ground, and his leg was badly broken. The injury was severe, and it was clear he might walk with a limp for the rest of his life. Once again, the procession of neighbors arrived. "Oh, the horror!" they lamented. "Your good fortune has turned to dust. Your only son, now crippled. This is the worst luck of all." The farmer, sitting by his son's bedside, looked at his neighbors with the same calm eyes. "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" he said. A week later, the emperor's army marched into the village. A war had broken out in a distant province, and the generals were conscripting every able-bodied young man. They went from house to house, taking the sons of the village. When they came to the farmer's house, they saw his son lying in bed with his broken leg, and so they passed him by. As the army marched away, taking their children with them, the neighbors gathered one last time at the farmer's house, their faces streaked with tears. "You were right," they whispered in awe. "Your son's injury was a blessing in disguise. Our sons are gone to war, but he is safe. Your luck is truly astonishing." The old farmer looked out at the dusty road where the army had disappeared, then back at his sleeping son. He took a deep breath, and for the last time he said, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" This story challenges the very foundation of how we interpret our lives. We are addicted to judging, to instantly labeling every event. A promotion is good. A layoff is bad. A new relationship is good. A breakup is bad. We live on a roller coaster of emotional highs and lows, tossed about by the waves of what we perceive as fortune and misfortune. The farmer's wisdom is the wisdom of perspective. He understands that life is a vast, interconnected tapestry, and we, with our limited vision, can only see one tiny thread at a time. We have no way of knowing how that one thread connects to the whole. What appears to be a disaster today may be the very thing that saves us tomorrow. What looks like a great victory might contain the seeds of a future challenge. To adopt the farmer's wisdom is to find a place of deep, abiding peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. It is to release our desperate grip on outcomes. It means that when something bad happens, we can meet it not with despair, but with a curious and open maybe. And when something good happens, we can meet it not with grasping attachment, but with a grateful and humble maybe. This doesn't mean we become passive or fatalistic. The farmer still tended his fields and cared for his son. It means we act, we love, we work, but we release the emotional burden of judging the results. We do our best and we let the universe unfold as it will. We stop fighting with reality. Think of a challenge you are facing right now, one you have labeled as bad. Can you, just for a moment, hold it in your mind and whisper to yourself, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" Feel the subtle release in your body. Feel the space that opens up when you let go of the rigid label. In that space is the farmer's peace. It is the peace of trusting the process, even when you cannot see the path. Part 4. The Tiger and the Strawberry. If the farmer teaches us to find peace with the unknown future, our next story teaches us to find it in the face of an immediate, inescapable present. This is the story of the tiger and the strawberry. A woman was walking through the wilderness when she came upon a ferocious tiger. She turned and fled, and the tiger gave chase. She ran as fast as she could, her heart pounding in her chest, but the tiger was gaining on her. She came to the edge of a high cliff. Her only hope of escape was a thick vine hanging down the cliff face. She grabbed hold of the vine and began to swing herself down, away from the snarling tiger on the edge above. As she hung there, suspended between the tiger and the rocks below, she looked down. To her horror, she saw another tiger at the bottom of the cliff looking up at her, waiting. She was trapped. A tiger above and a tiger below. Then, as if things could not get worse, she noticed two mice, one white and one black, had appeared from a crevice in the cliff. They began to nibble at the vine she was holding. She watched as they chewed, strand by strand, weakening her only support. She knew that at any moment the vine would break. Her life was hanging by a thread, and time was running out. It was in that moment, with certain death above, below, and at her very hands, that she noticed something. Growing from the cliff face, just within her reach, was a small plant. And on that plant was a single, perfect wild strawberry. Reaching out with her free hand, she carefully plucked the strawberry. She brought it to her lips, put it in her mouth, and savored it. How sweet it tasted. That is the end of the story. What does this strange and powerful tale teach us? The tigers are the great problems of our lives. The tiger of the past, our regrets, our traumas, our old pains, is always chasing us. The tiger of the future, our anxieties, our fears of sickness, death, and loss, is always waiting for us below. We are constantly suspended between the two. And the vine? The vine is our life itself. It is the thing we cling to. And the two mice, one white and one black, are day and night. They are time itself, steadily, relentlessly nibbling away at the vine of our life. This is the human condition. It can seem utterly terrifying and hopeless. But the woman in the story finds another way. In the face of this overwhelming, inescapable reality, what does she do? She doesn't scream. She doesn't despair. She doesn't close her eyes and pretend the tigers aren't there. She fully acknowledges her predicament. And then she finds the strawberry. The strawberry represents the present moment. It is the small joy, the simple beauty, the taste of sweetness that is available to us right now, regardless of the past and regardless of the future. The woman's enlightenment is in her ability to be completely present for that strawberry. We are all hanging on that vine. We all have our tigers. We spend so much of our precious energy looking up at the tiger of the past or down at the tiger of the future. We are so consumed by regret and anxiety that we completely miss the strawberry that is growing right in front of us. The strawberry could be the taste of your morning coffee. It could be the warmth of the sun on your skin. It could be the sound of your child's laughter. It could be the feeling of a clean, deep breath. It is the simple, profound, undeniable reality of this moment. This story is not about ignoring our problems. The woman knew the tigers were there. Peace is not about creating a life without tigers. That is impossible. Peace is about learning to find and savor the strawberries, even when the tigers are roaring. This is the practice of radical presence. It is the choice to pull our awareness away from the terrors of what was and what might be, and place it firmly in the simple reality of what is. The sweetness of life is not in the past or the future. It is always and only in the now. Right now, as you listen to my voice, what is your strawberry? Can you feel the contact of your body with the chair or bed? Can you notice the gentle rhythmic movement of your own breathing? Can you feel the aliveness in your hands? That is your strawberry. Don't let the tigers of your mind devour it. Savor it. How sweet it tastes. Part 5. Is that so? We have explored how we create our own reactions, how we must empty our minds to learn, how we can live without judging outcomes, and how to find peace in the present moment. Now, we will look at how to maintain that peace when the world projects its judgments onto us. This is the story of the Zen master Hakuin and his unshakable response. Is that so? Hakuin was a Zen master who was revered by his community for his wisdom and the purity of his life. He lived a simple existence in a small hut near the village. One day, a beautiful young woman who lived next door was discovered to be pregnant. Her angry and disgraced parents demanded to know who the father was. At first, the young woman refused to say. But under intense pressure and fearing her parents' wrath, she finally named the one person she thought they would be too intimidated to challenge, the Zen master, Hakuin. The parents, enraged, stormed to Hakuin's hut. They screamed at him, insulted him, and accused him of being a hypocrite and a charlatan. "My daughter has confessed," the father yelled. "You are the father of her child." Hakuin listened to their tirade without any sign of agitation. When they had finally exhausted their anger, he looked at them calmly and replied with just 3 words. "Is that so?" When the child was born, the parents, following the custom of their shame, brought the infant to Hakuin and left him there. "This is your child," they said with contempt. "You are responsible for him now." By this time, Hakuin's reputation was in ruins. The villagers who once revered him now scorned him. He lost all his followers, but none of this seemed to affect him. He accepted the baby with grace and care. He went to his neighbors to ask for milk and whatever else the infant needed, enduring their scorn and insults with quiet dignity. He cared for the child as if it were his own. A year passed. The young mother, the baby's true mother, could no longer bear the weight of her guilt and the pain of being separated from her child. She confessed to her parents that the real father was a young man who worked at the fish market. Her parents were horrified. They immediately rushed back to Hakuin's hut, bowing low to the ground, apologizing profusely for their mistake, for the false accusation, and for the terrible year he had endured. "We are so sorry," they wept. "We have come to take the baby back. My daughter has confessed everything. You are not the father." Hakuin listened to their tearful apologies and confessions. He looked at them with the same calm, unperturbed expression. As he gently handed the baby back to them, he said, with no trace of blame or resentment, "Is that so?" This story demonstrates a level of inner peace that seems almost superhuman. Hakuin's mind is like a mirror. It perfectly reflects whatever comes before it, praise or blame, reverence or scorn. But it is never stained by the reflection. The images come and go, but the mirror remains clear and untroubled. His response, "Is that so?" is not one of sarcasm or indifference. It is a response of radical non-attachment to the opinions of others. He does not resist their blame, nor does he cling to their praise. He understands that their words and actions are a reflection of their minds, their anger, their guilt, not of his true nature. We invest so much of our identity and self-worth in the opinions of others. A word of praise can make us feel elated. A word of criticism can send us into a spiral of despair. We are like small boats, tossed about by the changing winds of public opinion. Hakuin is like a great mountain. The winds of praise and blame howl around him, but his core remains still and unmoved. His sense of self does not come from the outside. It comes from a deep, inner wellspring of peace. To practice the wisdom of, "Is that so?" is to begin to untangle our well-being from the judgments of the world. When someone praises you, you can receive it gracefully, but inside you can whisper, "Is that so?" recognizing the fleeting nature of praise. When someone criticizes or blames you, you can listen. You can learn if there is truth in it, but you do not have to absorb the negativity. You can create an inner space and ask, is that so? Recognizing that their judgment is their own, not your reality. This practice builds an unshakable core of self-worth. It is the peace that comes from knowing who you are, independent of the ever-changing labels the world tries to place upon you. Take a moment. Remember a time someone criticized you unfairly. Feel the sting of it. Now, in your mind, hear their words again, but this time respond from your center with the calm, quiet power of Hakuin. Is that so? Feel how this simple phrase acts as a shield, not of aggression, but of peace. It keeps your mirror clean. Part 6. The Angry Samurai. Having built a peaceful fortress against the judgments of the world, let us now turn our gaze inward to the powerful storms that can rage within that fortress. The most common and destructive of these is anger. This leads us to the story of a proud warrior and his lesson at the hands of a gentle master. A great samurai, a man of high rank and fearsome reputation, came to visit the Zen master Hakuin. Being a warrior, not a scholar, he was direct and impatient. He strode into the master's presence, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, and demanded in a booming voice, "Old man, tell me, do heaven and hell truly exist?" The samurai was accustomed to being treated with fear and respect, but Hakuin did not seem impressed. He looked the grand warrior up and down with a dismissive air. "You?" the master scoffed, his voice dripping with contempt. "Why would a refined person like myself waste time talking to a dull-witted, slobbering lout like you? You are a disgrace to the samurai class. Look at that pathetic sword and that brutish face. Get out of my sight." The samurai's world stopped. No one had ever dared to speak to him this way. His face turned from red to purple with rage. His hand tightened on his sword. In an instant, the blade was drawn, flashing in the temple light, ready to strike the insolent monk down. He was consumed by a tidal wave of pure, murderous anger. He had become anger itself. In that very moment, as the samurai stood trembling with rage, Hakuin's expression softened. He raised a calm hand, looked the warrior directly in the eye, and said softly, "That, right now, is hell." The samurai froze. The master's words pierced through his rage like a beam of light into a dark room. He understood instantly. This fire of hatred, this uncontrollable impulse to destroy, this loss of all peace and clarity, this was hell. It was not a place you go to after you die. It was a state you create within yourself, right here, right now. Slowly, his shoulders slumped. The tension drained from his body. He let out a long, shuddering breath, and the rage subsided, like a wave receding from the shore. He looked at the master with newfound awe and deep gratitude. He sheathed his sword and bowed low, his forehead touching the floor. As he knelt in this posture of humility and understanding, Hakuin smiled his gentle smile. "And that," he said, just as softly as before, "is heaven." This powerful story reveals a fundamental truth. Heaven and hell are not geographical locations. They are states of consciousness. They are choices we make moment by moment. Hell is the state of being completely lost in our own reactivity. It is the fire of anger, the gnawing pit of jealousy, the icy grip of fear, the desolate landscape of resentment. When we are possessed by these emotions, we are in hell. Our vision narrows, our heart closes, our world becomes a dark and threatening place. The samurai, ready to kill over a simple insult, was living in a self-created hell of his own pride and anger. Heaven, in contrast, is not a place of endless pleasure or reward. It is a state of inner peace, clarity, and connection. It is the moment the samurai sheathed his sword. It is the feeling of humility, of gratitude, of understanding. It is the spaciousness that appears when the storm of emotion has passed. Heaven is a quiet mind and an open heart. We shuttle between these two states all day long. Someone cuts you off in traffic. For a moment, you are in hell. Then you remember to breathe, you let it go, and you return to a state of peace, heaven. You read a piece of frightening news, you are in the hell of anxiety. You then look out the window and see the beauty of a tree, and for a moment, you are in the heaven of simple presence. The key that Hakuin gives the samurai is the key of awareness. By pointing out the samurai's state, that is hell, he gifts him the power of self-observation. The moment the samurai could see his own anger, he was no longer completely lost in it. The awareness itself was the beginning of his freedom from it. This is a practice we can all cultivate. When you feel the heat of anger or the chill of fear rising, can you become your own Hakuin? Can you pause and name the state? Ah, this is anger. This feeling is hell. The act of naming it without judgment creates a separation. You are no longer the anger. You are the one who is observing the anger. And in that observation, you find the power to not act on it. You find the power to let the wave crest and fall without drowning in it. You find the power to sheathe your sword. The gates of heaven and hell are not guarded by some external deity. They are within you. And the key that opens them is your own awareness. Which gate will you choose to open in this next moment? Part 7. The Gates of Paradise. The story of the samurai showed us that heaven and hell are internal states created by our reactions. Our next story, featuring the same master, Hakuin, deepens this understanding, showing how our concepts of reward and punishment, of paradise and damnation, are often the very things that block our path. A soldier, a man of action and simple faith, once approached Hakuin and asked him a similar question to the samurais, but with a different intention. "Master," he said with sincerity, "I have been taught that there is a paradise and a hell. Can you tell me, what are they like? Where are their gates?" Hakuin looked at the soldier and asked, "What is your profession?" "I am a soldier," the man replied with pride. "I serve the emperor." "A soldier!" Hakuin exclaimed with a loud, theatrical laugh. "You call yourself a soldier? What kind of foolish lord would have a pathetic-looking weakling like you as his guard? You look more like a beggar than a warrior." The soldier's pride was deeply wounded. The insult stung, and just like the samurai, he felt the fire of anger begin to rise within him. His hand instinctively went to the handle of his sword. Noticing this, Hakuin pressed on. "Oh, so you have a sword? It's probably too dull to even cut a vegetable, let alone a man's head." This was too much. The soldier, now completely overcome with fury, drew his sword and prepared to strike the master. At that precise moment, Hakuin pointed a finger directly at the soldier's face and declared, "Here opens the gate of hell." The soldier, shocked by the power and timing of the master's words, had the same realization as the samurai. He saw his own rage, his own murderous intent, and understood that this state of being was hell. He was humbled. His anger vanished, replaced by a profound sense of respect and awe. He put away his sword and bowed deeply. Hakuin watched him, and then with a gentle smile he added, "And here opens the gate of paradise." This story beautifully illustrates that the gates to these two realms are not in some distant, mystical place. They are hinged on our every reaction. The gate of hell swings open with the drawing of the sword of anger. The gate of paradise swings open with the bowing of the head in humility and awareness. But there is a deeper layer here. The soldier came to Hakuin with a mind full of concepts. He had an idea of paradise as a place of reward and hell as a place of punishment. He was seeking a description, a map to an external location. Hakuin, in his profound wisdom, knew that words would be useless. A description of paradise is not paradise. A map of hell is not hell. The only way to teach the soldier was to have him experience the opening of the gates himself. We are often like this soldier. We seek peace, happiness, or enlightenment as if it were a destination to be reached, a reward to be won. We read books, we attend seminars, we collect spiritual concepts, filling our heads with ideas about peace. But all these ideas can become a form of baggage, preventing us from experiencing the simple reality of the present moment. True peace is not a concept. It is the felt experience of a quiet mind. True joy is not a reward for good behavior. It is the natural state of a heart that is not at war with itself. Hakuin's teaching method is a direct transmission. He bypasses the intellect and points directly to the heart of the matter. He shows us that these grand spiritual concepts of heaven and hell are in fact utterly practical, immediate, and visceral experiences. The next time you are caught in a spiral of worry, consumed by anxiety about the future, you are standing at the gates of hell. The worry itself is the suffering. The gate is open. The practice is to see it, to acknowledge, this is the gate of hell opening. That very act of seeing brings a flicker of light. It gives you a choice. You can choose to step through, or you can choose to take a breath, come back to the present, and allow that gate to swing closed. Conversely, when you experience a moment of genuine, selfless connection with another person, or a moment of profound gratitude for the simple fact of being alive, you are at the gates of paradise. The experience of that connection, that gratitude, is paradise. The practice is to recognize it, to cherish it, to allow its warmth to fill you. This is the gate of paradise opening. Stop looking for peace in a future destination. Stop fearing turmoil as a future punishment. The gates are right here, right now. They open and close with every breath, with every thought, with every reaction. Pay attention. The choice of which realm to inhabit is yours, in this moment and the next. Part 8. The Stone Mind. We have seen how our own reactivity opens the gates of heaven and hell. Often, what fuels this reactivity is a mind that has become hard and rigid, like stone. Our next story is about a monk whose mind was too much like a rock, and the lesson he learned in softness. There was a young, earnest monk who was deeply committed to his Zen practice. He had a reputation for his incredible discipline and his ability to meditate for hours on end, completely unmoving, like a stone statue. He took great pride in this ability. He believed that his unshakable concentration was a sign of great spiritual attainment. One day, his master came to see him as he was meditating in the garden, sitting as still as a boulder. The master, whose name was Nanyue, picked up a brick that was lying on the ground and began to rub it vigorously against a large stone, making a loud, grating sound. Scrape, scrape, scrape. The young monk tried to ignore the sound, to maintain his stone-like focus, but the noise was persistent and distracting. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he opened his eyes and asked with some irritation, "Master, what are you doing?" Nanyue held up the brick and replied calmly, "I am polishing this brick to make it into a mirror." The young monk couldn't help but laugh. "Master, that is impossible," he said. "You can rub that brick forever, but you will never turn it into a mirror." Nanyue smiled and put down the brick. He looked at his student and said, "You are right, and you can sit there like a stone forever, but you will never become a Buddha." The young monk was stunned into silence. He had believed his rigid, unmoving meditation was the path itself. The master's words shattered that belief. He suddenly understood that Zen is not about becoming hard, unfeeling, or inanimate like a stone. It is about becoming alive, flexible, and responsive, like a clear mirror that reflects everything without distortion. This story challenges a common misconception about meditation and peace. We often think that a peaceful mind is an empty mind, a mind that has suppressed all thought and feeling. We try to force our minds into a state of stillness, to become like the unmoving monk. But this is a form of violence against ourselves. It creates a stone mind, a mind that is disciplined but brittle, shut down, and ultimately not free. The goal of practice is not to stop the river of thoughts and feelings, but to stop being swept away by it. It is to learn to sit on the bank and watch the river flow. A mirror does not refuse to reflect what is in front of it. It reflects the storm clouds and the blue sky with equal clarity. It is not stained by either. A flexible mirror mind is different from a rigid stone mind. A stone mind resists. It says, "I should not be feeling angry," or "I must not think about my worries." This resistance creates tension and inner conflict. A mirror mind allows. It says, "Ah, there is the feeling of anger," or "there is a worried thought." It allows the thought or feeling to be there, and it allows it to pass without judgment or attachment. This softness of mind is crucial for navigating life. Life is constantly changing. If our minds are rigid like stone, we will be shattered by the unexpected. If our minds are flexible and responsive like a mirror, we can adapt to any situation with grace. Consider your own beliefs and opinions. Are they like stones, heavy and unchangeable? Or are they like water, able to flow and adapt to new information and perspectives? A stone mind is certain. A mirror mind is curious. Think about your emotional life. When a difficult emotion like sadness arises, do you try to turn to stone, to numb yourself and pretend it's not there? Or can you allow yourself to be a mirror, reflecting the sadness without becoming it, allowing it to be present until it naturally transforms? The master was not telling his student to stop meditating. He was telling him to change the quality of his meditation, to move from a practice of rigid control to a practice of gentle, open awareness, to stop trying to polish a brick into a mirror and to simply allow his own mind to become the mirror it was always meant to be. Let go of the effort to be a stone. Let go of the struggle to suppress your own mind. Instead, practice the art of gentle allowing. Be the clear, open mirror. Reflect the world in all its beauty and all its chaos, and remain at your center, perfectly clear, bright, and unstained. Part 9. The moon cannot be stolen. If a stone mind comes from clinging to ideas, another kind of suffering comes from clinging to things. Our next story, a beautiful and famous Zen tale, teaches us about true wealth and the things that can never be taken from us. Ryokan was a Zen master who lived a life of extreme simplicity. He resided in a small, humble hut at the foot of a mountain. He owned almost nothing: a thin blanket, a pot to cook his rice, and the simple robes he wore.
He was known for his gentle spirit, his beautiful poetry, and his complete detachment from material possessions. One evening, a thief broke into his hut, assuming that a respected master must have some hidden treasures or donations. The thief ransacked the tiny dwelling, but was dismayed to find there was absolutely nothing of value to steal. Just then, Ryokan returned from a walk. He saw the thief and understood the situation immediately. Instead of being angry or frightened, he felt a wave of compassion for this man who had gone to so much trouble for nothing. "You have come a long way to visit me," Ryokan said to the startled thief, his voice soft and kind. "And you should not leave empty-handed. Please take my clothes as a gift." The thief was utterly bewildered. He had come to rob this man, and instead he was being offered a gift? Hesitantly, he took the master's robes, the only thing of any worth in the hut, and fled into the night. Ryokan sat down, naked, in his now empty hut, watching the moon cast its silvery light through the open doorway. He felt no sense of loss, only a deep, quiet peace, and a touch of regret. He sighed and thought to himself, "Poor man, I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon." This story is a profound meditation on ownership and value. The thief operates from a world of material poverty and gain. He believes that value lies in things that can be owned, held, and taken. He looks for treasure and finds nothing. Ryokan lives in another reality entirely. His wealth is not in what he possesses, but in what he experiences. His treasures are the quiet of the mountain, the warmth of the sun, and the light of the moon. He understands that these, the most valuable things in life, cannot be possessed. And because they cannot be possessed, they can never be stolen. The master's final thought, "I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon," is one of the most poignant lines in all of Zen literature. It reveals the depth of his compassion. He pities the thief not for his poverty, but for his blindness. The thief is so focused on stealing the worthless robes that he is completely oblivious to the real treasure that is available to everyone for free, the magnificent moon shining in the night sky. We are often like the thief. We spend our lives accumulating robes, possessions, status, money, achievements. We believe these things will make us happy and secure. We guard them jealously, we fear losing them, and our lives become a cycle of acquiring and protecting. We are so busy with our robes that we forget to look at the moon. The moon represents the boundless, inherent beauty and peace of the present moment. It is the joy of a simple walk, the taste of clean water, the feeling of love for another being, the silent wonder of a starry night. It is the inner peace that is our birthright. This is the true wealth. Ryokan's act of giving away his clothes is an act of supreme freedom. He is not attached to them. By letting them go, he demonstrates that his identity and his happiness are not tied to his possessions. He is free. The thief, by taking them, becomes more burdened, more entangled in the world of things. This story asks us to examine our own lives. What are the robes we are clinging to? Our house? Our car? Our job title? Our reputation? And what is the moon we are ignoring while we are busy guarding our robes? This is not a call to abandon all our possessions and live in a hut. It is a call to shift our perspective, to hold our possessions lightly, to enjoy them, to be grateful for them, but to know in our hearts that they are not the source of our true happiness. It is an invitation to spend more time looking at the moon. The practice is simple.
Every day, make a point to notice one moon. One simple, beautiful thing that cannot be bought or sold. It could be the intricate pattern of a leaf, the sound of rain on the roof, the kindness in a stranger's eyes. By consciously noticing these things, you begin to cultivate the wealth of Ryokan. You begin to understand that no matter what happens in the material world, no matter what is given or taken away, no one can ever steal the moon from you. Part 10. A handful of salt in a glass of water. After understanding that true wealth is not in what we own, we must look at the nature of suffering itself. We often believe that our pain is a fixed, solid thing. This next story, a parable told by the Buddha, teaches us about the container in which we hold our pain. A young man was suffering deeply. He had experienced great loss, and the pain felt unbearable. He went to the Buddha and cried, "My heart is full of sorrow. I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. The pain is so immense, it feels like it will kill me." The Buddha listened with great compassion. He did not offer empty platitudes or deny the man's pain. Instead, he asked an assistant to bring him a handful of salt and a glass of water. He turned to the young man and said, "I want you to put this handful of salt into the glass of water and then drink it." The man did as he was told. He stirred the salt into the small glass of water until it dissolved, then took a sip. He immediately grimaced and spat it out. "How does it taste?" the Buddha asked. "It is bitter," the man choked. "It is horrible. I cannot drink it." The Buddha nodded. "Now," he said, "I want you to take that same handful of salt and follow me." He led the young man out of the monastery and to a vast, beautiful, crystal-clear lake nearby. The sun sparkled on its surface. "Now, put this handful of salt into the lake," the Buddha instructed. The young man threw the handful of salt into the great lake. The salt dissolved into the immense body of water without a trace. "And now," the Buddha said, "drink from the lake." The young man knelt down and scooped up the clear, cool water with his hands and drank deeply. "How does it taste?" the Buddha asked with a smile. "It is fresh," the man replied. "It is pure and wonderful." "The salt," the Buddha asked. "Do you still taste the salt?" "No," said the man. "I cannot taste it at all." The Buddha sat down beside the young man on the shore of the lake and said, "The pain of life is like this handful of salt. The amount of salt does not change, but the bitterness we taste depends entirely on the container we put it in. When you are in pain, you have a choice. You can be a small glass of water where the pain becomes overwhelming and all-consuming, or you can be a great lake where the pain can dissolve into a much larger space and its bitterness is no longer overwhelming. This parable offers a revolutionary perspective on managing suffering. It does not suggest that we can or should eliminate pain. Pain, loss, and sorrow, the handful of salt, are inevitable parts of the human experience. The Buddha does not magically make the salt disappear. Instead, he teaches us how to expand the container. So, what does it mean to be a glass versus being a lake? The glass is a small, constricted mind. It is a mind that is entirely self-obsessed. When pain arrives, the small mind focuses on it exclusively. It obsesses over my pain, my suffering, my loss. The pain fills every corner of the mind, just as the salt made the entire glass of water undrinkable. The world shrinks down to the size of our own personal suffering. This is the state of being a glass. The lake, on the other hand, is a large, expansive heart and mind. It is a mind that is connected to something larger than itself. To become a lake means to cultivate compassion, perspective, and connection. When pain arrives, the expansive mind does not deny it, but it holds it in a much larger context. It can feel its own sorrow, but it is also aware of the sorrow of others, compassion. It is aware of the vastness of time and the cycles of life and death. It is aware of the beauty of the world that continues to exist alongside its pain. Connection. When you put the salt of your personal pain into the great lake of universal experience, it dissolves. Its power to dominate your consciousness is diminished. You can still acknowledge its presence, but it no longer defines your entire reality. So how do we become a lake? We do it by actively turning our attention outward. When you are in pain, instead of withdrawing further into yourself, becoming a smaller glass, the practice is to open up. Go for a walk in nature and feel its vastness. Perform a small act of kindness for someone else, shifting the focus from your pain to their needs. Practice gratitude for the simple things that are still good in your life. Meditate on the fact that millions of other beings at this very moment are also experiencing pain. You are not alone in your suffering. Each of these acts is a way of adding more water to your container. They expand your heart, your mind, and your perspective. They don't take the pain away, but they give it space to be, to float, to dissolve into a larger reality, until you can once again taste the fresh, pure water of life itself. Part 11. The True Master. We have learned that our pain, like a handful of salt, can dissolve when held in a larger container of compassion and perspective. But what happens when the salt in our lives comes from other people? From those we find difficult, ignorant, or even malicious? Our next story challenges our very idea of who or what can be our teacher. Two young monks were traveling together on a long pilgrimage. One was named Genshin, and he was very serious, pious, and a strict follower of every rule. The other was named Tendo, and he was more light-hearted, seeing the world with curious and open eyes. One evening, they sought lodging at a large monastery. As they were being shown to their quarters, they passed the room of the monastery's head teacher, a Zen master renowned for his wisdom. The door was slightly ajar, and inside they saw the old master with a woman, and they were drinking wine. Genshin, the serious monk, was deeply shocked and offended. A monk drinking wine was a violation of the precepts, and to be alone with a woman in his room was an even greater scandal. His mind filled with judgment. This man is no master, he thought to himself. He is a fraud. We must leave this corrupted place at once. He turned to Tendo and whispered angrily, "Did you see that? That man is a disgrace. Let's go." Tendo, however, had a different expression on his face. He was quiet, and a look of deep understanding was dawning in his eyes. He put a hand on his friend's arm and said, "Wait, let's stay and observe." The next morning, the two young monks went to the master's room to pay their respects before leaving. Genshin was cold and formal, barely able to hide his contempt. The old master greeted them warmly and asked, "How did you sleep?" Genshin could not hold back his righteous anger. How could anyone sleep peacefully in a place where the precepts are so openly broken? He retorted. "We saw you last night, master, drinking wine with a woman." The old master's eyes twinkled. He smiled a kind, knowing smile. "The woman," he said softly, "is my mother. She is very old and frail, and I have not seen her in 20 years. She made a long journey to see me one last time. And the wine you saw was a special herbal medicine she brought for my cough. We were sharing a moment of reunion." Genshin's face flushed with shame. His tower of self-righteous judgment crumbled into dust.
He fell to his knees, unable to speak. The master then turned his gaze to Tendo, who had been silent this whole time. "And you, young man?" the master asked. "What did you see last night?" Tendo bowed his head respectfully and replied, "Master, I saw a good son taking loving care of his elderly mother." The old master nodded slowly. He looked at the shamed Genshin and then at the wise Tendo. "There are two kinds of students," he said. "One learns only from the good examples. They seek out perfect saints and flawless masters, but their learning is narrow. The other kind of student, the true student, learns from everything and everyone. They can learn from the bad example just as much as the good one." "Tell me, Genshin," he said, his voice full of compassion, "last night, who was your true master, me or your own judging mind?" This story cuts to the heart of how we learn. We often seek perfect teachers, flawless role models, and ideal situations. We believe that wisdom can only be found in pure and pristine sources. But this belief severely limits our ability to grow. Genshin represents the rigid mind, the mind that clings to rules and appearances. His judgment blinded him to the reality of the situation. But more importantly, even if the master had been breaking the rules, Genshin's reaction still closed him off from any potential learning. His true teacher in that moment was not the master, but his own powerful, negative, and instantaneous judgment. He learned a profound lesson about his own arrogance. Tendo represents the open mirror mind. He did not jump to conclusions. He observed, he waited, and he saw the essence of the situation, love and care. He was able to see beyond the superficial appearance. The deepest wisdom of this story is that life itself is our greatest teacher. Every person we meet, every situation we encounter has something to teach us, if we are open to learning. The difficult boss can teach us patience. The person who insults us can teach us about our own ego and the nature of the empty boat. The person who is suffering can teach us compassion. Even our own mistakes are profound teachers, if we are willing to learn from them instead of drowning in guilt. When you label someone as bad, wrong, or ignorant, you shut down the possibility of learning. You place them in a box and close the lid. You make your own mind smaller. The practice this story invites is to dissolve those boxes. It is to ask yourself in any situation, what is the lesson for me here? Who or what is my true master in this moment? Often, you will find, as Genshin did, that your most powerful and persistent teacher is your own reactive, judging mind. By learning to watch that mind, to see its patterns without being controlled by them, you become a student of the highest order. You turn the whole world into your monastery. Take a moment now. Bring to mind someone you find difficult, someone you have judged harshly. Instead of focusing on their flaws, ask yourself, what have they taught me about myself? What have they taught me about my own patience, my own ego, my own triggers? See them not as an obstacle, but as a teacher in disguise. This shift in perspective is a key to profound freedom. Part 12. The Muddy Road. Once we begin to see everyone as a potential teacher, our hearts naturally begin to open. This leads to the practice of compassion in action. But compassion can be tricky. We can become attached to our own good deeds or confused about the rules. Our next story is one of the most famous in all of Zen, a simple tale of two monks and a muddy road. Two Zen monks, the senior monk Tanzan and the junior monk Aikido, were on a journey together. They were walking along a country road after a heavy rain. The road was a mess of deep mud and puddles. As they rounded a bend, they came upon a beautiful young woman in a fine silk kimono standing by the side of the road. She was clearly distressed, unable to cross a particularly large and muddy section of the road without ruining her expensive clothing. Without a moment's hesitation, the senior monk, Tanzan, walked up to her. He smiled, and in one swift, graceful motion, he lifted her up into his arms, carried her across the muddy patch, and set her down gently on the other side. He then bowed and continued on his way. The young woman, stunned but grateful, bowed in return. The junior monk, Aikido, was speechless. He was horrified. Monks were forbidden from touching women, let alone a beautiful young one. It was one of the most serious precepts. He couldn't believe what he had just seen his senior do. He was filled with disapproval and righteous indignation, but he said nothing. The two monks walked on in silence. For the next hour, Aikido's mind was a storm. He replayed the scene over and over. How could he do that? He broke the rules. He is a senior monk. He should know better. What a scandal! His mind was filled with judgment and turmoil. After walking for another hour, his inner turmoil became unbearable. He could no longer contain himself. Finally, as they were nearing a lodging for the night, he burst out, "Tanzan, I have to talk to you. Back there, on the road. You know we monks are not supposed to go near women. It is a sacred rule. Why did you carry that woman across the mud?" Tanzan looked at his junior companion, his expression calm and a little surprised. "Oh, that woman?" he said, his voice light. "I left her back there on the muddy road miles ago. Are you still carrying her?" This story is a perfect illustration of the difference between action and attachment, between doing what is necessary and carrying a mental burden. Tanzan saw a person in need. His response was immediate, compassionate, and practical. He did what was required in that moment to alleviate suffering. His action was clean, pure, and unattached. Once the action was complete, his mind was free. He did not think about it again. He was fully present for the next step of his journey. He left the woman on the side of the road. Aikido, on the other hand, did not touch the woman physically. He followed the rule to the letter. But in his mind, he picked her up and carried her for miles. He was burdened not by the woman herself, but by his own thoughts, his own judgments, and his rigid adherence to the rules. He was physically on the road to the lodging, but mentally he was still stuck back in the mud. Who was the purer monk in that moment? The one who broke a rule out of compassion, or the one who followed the rule but whose mind was filled with turmoil and judgment? This story speaks directly to all of us. How many women in kimonos are we still carrying? Perhaps it was an argument with a loved one from last week. The argument is over, but you are still replaying it in your mind, carrying the anger and resentment. You left the person in the living room, but you are still carrying them. Perhaps it was a mistake you made at work last month. The project is finished, but you are still carrying the guilt and the fear of judgment. You left the mistake at the office, but you are still carrying it. Perhaps it is a grudge against someone who wronged you years ago. That person may not even be in your life anymore, but you are still carrying the heavy weight of that old story. Our minds are constantly picking up these burdens. We cling to past events, to hurts, to worries, to rules, and to our own self-righteousness. And we wonder why we are so tired, so heavy, so lacking in peace. The practice that Tanzan teaches is the practice of letting go. It is the art of being fully present for each moment, doing what is necessary with a clean heart, and then moving on to the next moment without carrying the baggage of the last. This is not easy. Our minds are conditioned to cling, but we can practice. The next time you find yourself ruminating on a past event, you can use Tanzin's words as a mantra. You can ask yourself, am I still carrying her? This question can act as a gentle reminder to bring your attention back to the present moment, to put down the heavy burden, to leave the past in the past where it belongs. Breathe in now. And as you breathe out, scan your mind. What are you carrying right now, from yesterday, from this morning? Can you, just for this moment, set it down on the side of the road? Feel the lightness that comes when you do. You don't need to carry it any further. Part 13. The Thief's Gift. We have explored the compassionate act of helping another and letting it go. Now we return to the theme of giving, but with a deeper look at what it means to give without expectation and the unexpected gifts we receive when we do. This is another story about a master and a thief. The Zen master Shichiri Kojun was meditating in his small temple one evening when a thief entered with a sharp sword. The thief demanded, "Give me your money or I will kill you." Shichiri was completely unperturbed. "Do not disturb me," he said calmly, without opening his eyes. "You can find the money in that drawer over there." He then returned to his meditation. The thief, a little surprised by the lack of resistance, went to the drawer and took all the money. As he was about to leave, Shichiri spoke again. "When you receive a gift," he said, his voice still calm and even, "you should at least say thank you." The thief was taken aback, but something in the master's powerful presence compelled him. He muttered a quick thank you and left. A few days later, the thief was caught for another crime and confessed to robbing the master. When the police came to question Shichiri, he told them, "That man is no thief. I gave him the money as a gift. He even thanked me for it." The thief was so moved by the master's words that after he was released from prison, he went straight to Shichiri and asked to become his student. And from that day forward, the former thief lived a life of devotion and became a respected monk. Years later, he would often tell the story of the gift that changed his life. But he wasn't talking about the money. This story illuminates the transformative power of true generosity. Shichiri's actions go far beyond simple non-resistance. He actively reframes the entire event, turning a robbery into an act of giving. In doing so, he gives the thief something far more valuable than money. He gives him dignity. When Shichiri says, "You should at least say thank you," he is not being sarcastic. He is treating the thief not as a criminal, but as a human being who is participating in a social contract. He is pulling the thief, just for a second, out of his role as a violent outcast and into the role of a recipient of a gift. This small act plants a seed of self-respect in the thief's heart. The master's greatest gift, however, comes later, when he tells the police, "I gave him the money." He protects the man's reputation, but more than that, he holds a vision of the man's potential for goodness. He refuses to define the man by his worst act. He sees the potential student beneath the struggling thief. This unwavering belief in the man's better nature is what ultimately inspires the thief's transformation. This is a very different kind of giving than we are used to. We often give with an expectation of return, even if it's just a thank you or a feeling of self-satisfaction. We give to people we deem worthy. Shichiri gives freely, without condition, even to someone who threatens his life. His giving is a practice of non-attachment. He is not attached to his money, so he can give it away. More profoundly, he is not attached to his own ideas of justice or revenge. He does not need the thief to be punished to feel secure. His security comes from within.
This story asks us to look at our own acts of giving. Do we give freely, or are there strings attached? Can we give our full, non-judgmental attention to someone even if we disapprove of their actions? Can we give someone the gift of seeing their potential instead of defining them by their mistakes? The thief can be a metaphor for anyone in our lives who takes from us our time, our energy, our peace of mind. Our instinct is to resist, to guard ourselves, to fight back. Shichiri shows us another way, the way of transformative giving. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can give someone who is acting out of pain or desperation is to refuse to see them as a monster. It is to hold a space for their humanity, to treat them with an unexpected dignity. This does not mean condoning harmful acts. It means understanding that the act is not the entirety of the person. The final, beautiful twist is that in giving, Shichiri also receives a great gift, a devoted student, and the joy of seeing a life transformed. This is the nature of true generosity. It flows out, but it also flows back in unexpected ways. When we give from a place of abundance and compassion, we enrich our own lives immeasurably. Think about a person or situation that you feel is robbing you of your peace. Can you, in your mind, reframe the interaction? Can you find something small to give? A moment of understanding? A letting go of blame? A silent wish for their well-being? See what happens to your own heart when you turn a robbery into a gift. Part 14. Every day is a good day. Having explored our interactions with others through the lens of compassion and generosity, we now turn to our relationship with time itself, with the unending flow of our days. How do we find peace not just in special moments, but in the fabric of ordinary life? This question is at the heart of a famous Zen koan. A master named Yunmen once addressed his monks. He didn't offer a long sermon or a complex teaching. He simply held up his staff, looked at the assembled monks, and asked a question. "I don't ask you about the days before the 15th of the month," he said, "but what about the days after the 15th? Come, say a word about this." The monks were silent. They did not understand the master's meaning. Seeing their confusion, Yunmen answered his own question. He said, "Every day is a good day." Every day is a good day. Nichi nichi kore kojitsu. These simple words are one of the most profound and practical teachings in Zen. At first glance, this statement seems absurd, even naive. How can every day be a good day? What about days filled with sickness, loss, grief, or failure? What about days when it rains on our parade, when our plans fall apart, when we are met with cruelty or injustice? To call these days good can feel like a denial of reality, a form of toxic positivity. But that is not what Yunmen meant. He was not saying that every day is a pleasant day or a happy day. He was pointing to a deeper truth. A good day in the Zen sense is a day that is complete, a day that is real, a day that we are fully alive for. It is a day that we meet with our whole being, without judgment or resistance. Our suffering comes not from the events of the day, but from our mental commentary about them. We have an idea of what a good day should look like. Sunny weather, successful meetings, pleasant interactions. When reality doesn't match our ideal, we label the day as bad. We are at war with what is. It shouldn't be raining. This shouldn't be happening. This resistance is the source of our turmoil. To experience every day is a good day is to let go of this war. It is to accept the totality of each day just as it is. If it is a rainy day, then a rainy day is a good day. We can experience the sound of the rain, the smell of the wet earth, the feeling of coziness indoors. we meet the rain with our full presence. If it is a day of sickness, then a day of sickness is a good day to practice patience, to learn about our body, to accept our vulnerability. We meet the sickness with awareness and self-compassion. If it is a day of difficult challenges, then it is a good day to practice courage, resilience, and creativity. We meet the challenge head-on. This teaching is not about pretending to like what is unpleasant. It is about dropping the useless layer of mental resistance and fully engaging with the reality of the moment. When you stop fighting with the day, you free up an immense amount of energy. You can then use that energy to respond to the day's events with wisdom and grace. Yunmen's question about the 15th of the month is a classic Zen puzzle. The 15th represents the full moon, a symbol of enlightenment or perfect understanding. He is saying, I'm not interested in your theories about enlightenment or your talk about some future state of perfection. I want to know, how do you live now? How do you handle the ordinary days, the days that are not the peak experience? His answer is the practice. The practice is to meet this day, this ordinary, imperfect, messy, beautiful day, as a good day. It is good simply because it is the only day we have. It is the only stage upon which our life is unfolding. How can you practice this? You can start your morning by setting an intention. You can say to yourself, whatever this day brings, I will meet it. Today is a good day. When you encounter a challenge, instead of the habitual thought, oh no, this is a bad day, you can try to gently shift your inner dialogue to, this is part of today, and today is a good day. This is not a magic trick. It is a retraining of the mind. It is a shift from judgment to acceptance. It is a deep and profound commitment to being alive, to showing up for your own life, no matter the weather. When you can truly feel in your bones that every day is a good day, you have found a peace that circumstances can never take away from you. Part 15. Leaving it all behind. We end this part of our journey with a story that powerfully synthesizes many of the themes we've explored: acting with compassion, the burden of our thoughts, and the freedom of letting go. This is the story of a final lesson between a master and his student. A young monk was preparing to leave his master's monastery after many years of study. He felt he had learned a great deal, and he was eager to go out into the world and teach. As a final test, his master decided to accompany him on the first day of his journey. They walked all day, and as evening approached, they came to a wild, rushing river. There was no bridge. The master, without a word, waded into the powerful current and crossed to the other side. He then sat down on the far bank and watched his student. The young monk, wanting to prove his attainment, sat down on his own side of the river and entered a deep state of meditation. After an hour of intense concentration, he levitated, floated gracefully across the raging river, and landed gently beside his master. He looked at his master, proud of his incredible accomplishment, expecting a word of praise for this miraculous feat. The master looked back at him, his expression unreadable. He then reached into his robe, pulled out a small coin, and handed it to the young monk. Here, the master said, next time you can use this to pay the ferryman. It's much easier. With that, the master got up and walked away, leaving the young monk sitting in stunned silence, his great miracle reduced to the value of a single coin. This story is a sharp and humorous lesson about the true purpose of spiritual practice. The young monk had become attached to the form of his practice rather than its essence. He had spent years developing a remarkable skill, the ability to levitate, but he had missed the point. The purpose of practice is not to gain supernatural powers, to perform miracles, or to show off our spiritual attainments. The purpose is to become more free, more compassionate, and more grounded in the simple reality of life. It is to learn how to cross the rivers of our daily challenges with ease and grace. The master's lesson is profound. He is showing the student that his spectacular, effort-filled miracle achieved the exact same result as a simple, practical, common-sense action. Why spend an hour in intense, ego-driven meditation to achieve something that a ferryman could do for you in 2 minutes for a single coin? The student had mistaken the difficult path for the virtuous one. He was attached to the struggle, to the drama of his own spiritual prowess. The master, in his simple and direct action of wading through the water, demonstrated a different kind of mastery. A mastery of practicality, of humility, of not making things more complicated than they need to be. This speaks to us directly. How often do we make our lives more difficult than necessary because we are attached to a certain way of doing things? We might spend hours in a state of anxiety and turmoil over a problem, running it over and over in our minds, like the monk in deep meditation, when a simple, direct conversation, paying the ferryman, could resolve it. We might complicate our relationships with unspoken expectations and intricate mental dramas, when a simple act of honesty and vulnerability could clear the air. We choose the difficult internal struggle over the simple external solution. The master's final act of walking away is also a teaching. He is leaving the student with this powerful, humbling lesson to contemplate. He is severing the student's attachment to his approval. The student was seeking praise, a validation of his ego. The master gives him something far more valuable, a mirror to see his own spiritual pride. This story asks us to examine our own efforts. In our work, our relationships, our personal growth, are we focused on the goal, crossing the river, or are we in love with the struggle itself? Are we trying to impress others or our own ego with our efforts? Or are we willing to take the simple, humble, easy path when it is available? True wisdom is not about being spectacular. It is about being effective, simple, and free. It is about knowing when to put forth great effort and when to just pay the ferryman. It is the art of leaving the drama behind and simply getting on with the journey of life. Take a breath. Think of a river in your life, a challenge you are facing. Are you trying to levitate across it through sheer force of will? Or is there a ferryman waiting? Is there a simpler, more direct, more humble path you have been overlooking? The master's coin is a reminder. The easiest path is often the wisest. Part 16. The Sound of One Hand. We have learned about the simple, practical wisdom of choosing the easy path when it is available, of not letting our spiritual pride complicate our journey. Now, we must venture beyond the realm of the practical and the logical into a space of pure inquiry. This brings us to one of the most famous and perplexing questions in all of Zen, the koan of the sound of one hand. A young student named Yoshu went to the Zen master Hakuin, the same master we met in the stories of heaven and hell. Yoshu was bright and eager, and for his first private interview, Hakuin presented him with a koan, a riddle meant to shatter the logical mind. "You can hear the sound of two hands clapping," Hakuin said, clapping his own hands together to demonstrate. "Now," he continued, his eyes piercing into the young student, "show me the sound of one hand." Yoshu was intrigued. He left the master's presence and went to his room to meditate on the question. He thought he understood. The sound of one hand must be silence. The next day he went back to the master, sat in perfect silence, and offered this as his answer. Hakuin immediately dismissed him. "No, no, that is not it. You are not truly listening." Confused, Yoshu went back to his meditation. He thought, perhaps it is the sound of the wind or the cry of a cricket. For days, he brought different sounds to the master, the dripping of water, the sighing of the breeze, the call of an owl. Each time, Hakuin would reject his answer, sometimes even chasing him from the room, telling him his understanding was shallow and external. This went on for months, then years. Yoshu brought every sound he could imagine to the master, and every answer was wrong. He became desperate. He felt he had exhausted every possibility his mind could conjure. His intellect was useless. His logic was a dead end. He was completely and utterly stuck. In this state of profound not knowing, with his logical mind finally exhausted and defeated, he sat one night in deep meditation. All his ideas were gone. All his concepts had failed him. There was only the question, echoing in the vast, empty space of his mind. And in that emptiness, he heard it. The next day, he went to Hakuin. Before he could even open his mouth to offer an answer, the master looked at him and nodded, a rare smile on his face. He knew that Yoshu had finally heard. So, what is the sound of one hand? This koan is not a riddle to be solved with the intellect. There is no correct verbal or conceptual answer. It is a tool designed to do one thing, to break the prison of our dualistic thinking. Our ordinary mind operates in a world of opposites, sound and silence, subject and object, self and other, right and wrong. The sound of two hands clapping is a perfect symbol of this world. It requires two separate things coming together to create a result. The sound of one hand points to the reality that exists before this division. It is the sound of your own original nature, before it is chopped up by thought and language. It is the sound of life itself, not as a concept, but as a direct, unmediated experience. To hear the sound of one hand is to have a direct experience of non-duality, of the interconnectedness of all things. It is a state of pure being, of pure listening, where the distinction between the listener and the sound dissolves. Hakuin rejected all of Yoshu's answers because they were all coming from his thinking mind. The wind, the cricket, silence. These are all concepts, ideas about reality. The master was pushing Yoshu to go beyond ideas and to have a direct, personal, visceral experience. The final answer is not a sound that you hear with your ears. It is an understanding that dawns in your heart. While we may not be Zen students formally working on a koan, our lives present us with the same challenge every day. We are trapped in our logical, problem-solving minds. We try to think our way to peace. We try to analyze our way to happiness. We create complex stories and concepts about our lives, and then we get lost in them. The practice of listening for the sound of one hand is the practice of letting go of this mental chatter. It is the practice of being comfortable in the state of not knowing. It is to listen to the world not with your intellect, but with your whole being. You can practice this right now. Stop trying to understand these words with your mind. Instead, just listen to the sound of them. Now, listen to the silence between the words. Now, listen to the ambient sounds in your room, the hum of a fan, a distant car. Now, listen for the listener. Who is it that is hearing all this? Go deeper. Can you feel the aliveness in your own body? The silent hum of your own energy? That is a taste of it. It is the sound that is always there, beneath the noise of our thoughts. It is the sound of just being. Don't try to solve the riddle. The riddle is designed to solve you.
It is designed to dissolve the rigid mind and open you up to the vast, silent, living mystery that you already are. Part 17. The Beauty of a Cracked Teacup. After wrestling with the profound, abstract mystery of a koan, let us ground ourselves in something tangible,
something we can hold in our hands. Let us explore the beauty of imperfection. This brings us to the Japanese aesthetic and philosophy of wabi-sabi, often illustrated through the story of a great tea master. There once was a young man named Rikyu who desired to learn the intricate art of the tea ceremony. He went to study with a renowned tea master, Takano Jo. To test the young man's aptitude, the master asked him to tend to the garden. Rikyu went to work with great diligence. He pruned the hedges, raked the gravel, and pulled every single weed until the garden was in a state of pristine, perfect order. Not a leaf was out of place. He presented his work to the master, proud of its flawless condition. The master, Joe, inspected the garden quietly. Then, without a word, he walked over to a maple tree and shook one of its branches, causing a few beautiful crimson leaves to scatter randomly across the perfectly raked moss and gravel. "Now it is ready," he said. In that single, simple act, Rikyu learned the essence of wabi-sabi. It is the understanding that true beauty is not found in cold, sterile perfection, but in the subtle, humble, and transient imperfections of the natural world. Years later, Rikyu himself became the most celebrated tea master in Japan. One day, he was hosting a tea ceremony for his disciples. He brought out his collection of precious tea bowls for them to admire. Among the flawless, exquisitely crafted pieces, there was one that was rustic, asymmetrical, and had a small visible crack that had been mended with gold lacquer. One of the students, seeing this obviously imperfect piece among the treasures, asked, "Master, why do you cherish that cracked bowl? It does not seem to belong with these other perfect items." Rikyu picked up the cracked bowl, holding it as if it were the most precious thing in the world. He turned it slowly in his hands, letting the light catch the golden repair. "This bowl," he said softly, "is my greatest teacher. The flawless bowls speak of human skill and the pursuit of an ideal. They are beautiful, but their story is simple. This bowl, however, tells a deeper story. It speaks of a life lived. It has been used, and it has been broken. The crack is a record of its history, a mark of its vulnerability." He continued, "But it was not discarded. It was cared for. The golden seam does not hide the damage. It illuminates it. It makes the bowl more beautiful for having been broken. It tells us that there is beauty in imperfection, resilience in healing, and that our scars can become our greatest strengths. This," he said, holding the bowl up for all to see, "is true beauty. This is the heart of wabi-sabi. It is a worldview centered on the acceptance of transience and imperfection. It is a beauty that is imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. We live in a culture that is obsessed with the opposite. We worship youth, perfection, and flawlessness. We use filters to smooth our skin, we hide our mistakes, and we are terrified of aging, of breaking, of showing our cracks. We are constantly striving for the flawless garden, the perfect tea bowl. This pursuit is a source of immense anxiety and suffering because it is a fight against the very nature of reality. Life is impermanent. Everything is in a state of flux. Everything breaks. Wabi-sabi offers a radical alternative. It invites us to find peace and beauty not in spite of the imperfections, but because of them. It is a form of compassion directed at ourselves and the world. Can you look at the lines on your face not as a sign of decay, but as a map of your life, a record of all the smiles and tears that have brought you to this moment? That is wabi-sabi. Can you look at a relationship that has gone through difficult times and see the golden repairs, the forgiveness, the understanding, the deeper bond that came from weathering the storm? as a source of its unique beauty? That is wabi-sabi. Can you accept a project or a piece of work that is not perfect but is authentic and heartfelt and see its value? That is wabi-sabi. The master shaking the leaves into the perfect garden reminds us that life's messy, unpredictable nature is what makes it beautiful. The pristine garden is sterile. The scattered leaves give it life and a sense of passing time. The cracked teacup reminds us that our own cracks, our vulnerabilities, our past hurts, our mistakes are not things to be hidden in shame. They are part of our story. When met with the gold lacquer of self-compassion and acceptance, they can become the most beautiful and compelling parts of who we are. Take a moment. Think of an imperfection in your life that you struggle with, something you wish were different. Now, try to see it through the eyes of wabi-sabi. See its history. See its story. See the resilience it has taught you. Can you, just for a moment, hold it gently, like a precious, cracked teacup? Can you find the beauty in its truth? Part 18. The Flag and the Wind. Having found beauty in the imperfect, tangible world, we now take another step deeper to question the very nature of that world and our perception of it. This story challenges us to look beyond the obvious, to the source of all movement and all reality. Two monks were arguing in the courtyard of a monastery. A great banner, the temple flag, was flapping and snapping in a strong wind. The first monk, pointing to the banner, said, "The flag is moving." The second monk, a student of a different school of thought, shook his head in disagreement. "You are mistaken," he said. "The wind is moving. The flag is merely passive. It is the wind that is the true source of the movement." They fell into a heated philosophical debate, each defending his position with great vigor. One argued for the primacy of the object, the other for the primacy of the force acting upon the object. As they argued, the sixth patriarch of Zen, the great master Huineng, happened to be walking by. He overheard their debate, approached them, and listened for a moment. Then he spoke. "The flag is not moving," he said. "The wind is not moving." He paused, letting his words sink in, then delivered the profound conclusion. "It is the mind that is moving." The two monks were struck silent, their debate instantly rendered obsolete. In that moment, they understood. This short, powerful exchange is a cornerstone of Zen philosophy. It points to the fundamental idea that our experience of reality is not a direct perception of an objective, external world. Rather, our experience is created, filtered, and projected by our own minds. The debate of the two monks represents our ordinary, dualistic way of seeing the world. We see separate things, a flag, a wind, and we argue about their relationship, about cause and effect. This is the realm of science, of logic, of everyday perception. Huineng's statement completely transcends this level. He is not saying that, factually, the flag and the wind are motionless. He is making a much deeper point about the nature of experience itself. The movement that we perceive is not a property of the flag or the wind. The experience of movement is a construct, a phenomenon arising within consciousness, within the mind. Without a mind to perceive it, what is movement? What is color? What is sound? The universe might be a swirl of unperceived energy waves and vibrations, but the rich, textured world that we experience, the flapping of the banner, the rush of the wind, is painted into existence by the brush of our own consciousness. This is a radical and liberating insight. If our experience of the world is created in our mind, then it means that the quality of our life is not ultimately determined by external events, but by the state of our own mind. We believe that our happiness depends on getting a new car, or our peace depends on other people being quiet. We are like the first monk, saying, the flag, the external object, is what matters. Or we might be slightly more sophisticated, like the second monk, saying, the wind, the external force, is what matters. The Zen master tells us we are both looking in the wrong place. It is not the car, nor the quiet, that creates our state. It is the mind that moves. A mind that moves with desire for the car creates suffering if the car is not obtained. A mind that moves with aversion to noise creates frustration. The external world is just the trigger. The movement, the experience, the suffering, or the peace is in the mind. To understand this is to shift from being a victim of circumstance to being the master of your own inner world. When you feel disturbed, instead of blaming the flag, the person who insulted you, or the wind, the unfortunate situation, you can turn your attention inward. You can ask, how is my mind moving right now? Is it moving with anger, with fear, with judgment? The practice, then, is not to try and control all the flags and all the winds of the world, an impossible task. The practice is to cultivate a still mind. What happens when the mind is still? Does the world disappear? No. When the mind is still, it becomes like a clear, placid lake. It can reflect the flag and the wind perfectly, just as they are, without the ripples of judgment, desire, or fear. It can see the world with breathtaking clarity and respond with wisdom and compassion, but it is not moved into a state of turmoil by it. The peace you seek is not in a world where all the flags are still and the winds are calm. The peace you seek is in the discovery that you can have a still mind even while the flags of life are flapping wildly in the wind. Remember the words of the Master. It is the mind that is moving, and what moves can also be still. Part 19. The Weight of the Glass. After contemplating the profound idea that our mind creates our reality, let's bring this wisdom into a very practical, modern context. The previous story taught us that it is the movement of the mind, not the external world, that causes our suffering. Our next parable, though not an ancient Zen tale, perfectly illustrates how this mental movement works, especially with the burdens of worry and stress. A psychologist teaching a class on stress management walked to the front of the room holding a simple glass of water. Her students expected the classic, is it half empty or half full question. But she surprised them. She held the glass up for all to see and asked with a warm smile, how heavy is this glass of water? The students shouted out various answers, 8 ounces, 12 ounces, a pound. She shook her head. The absolute weight doesn't matter, she replied. The perceived weight depends entirely on how long I hold it. If I hold it for a minute, she continued, it's quite light, no problem at all. If I hold it for an hour, my arm will start to ache. It will feel heavy and uncomfortable. If I hold it for an entire day, my arm will feel numb and paralyzed. The weight of the glass hasn't changed, but the longer I hold it, the heavier and more burdensome it becomes. The students nodded, beginning to understand. She then looked at them with kind, serious eyes. Your worries, your fears, your resentments, your stresses, she said, are exactly like this glass of water. Think about them for a little while, and nothing happens. They are manageable. Think about them all day long, and they begin to ache, to weigh you down. Carry them with you for days, weeks, or years, and you will become paralyzed, incapable of doing anything else. You will be crushed by their weight. She paused, letting the power of the metaphor sink in. The only way to find relief she concluded softly, is to put the glass down. This simple story is a powerful reminder of a truth we often forget. The problem is not the existence of worries. Worries, like the glass of water, are a normal part of life. The problem is our attachment to them, our habit of carrying them mentally long after their initial appearance. We pick up a worry in the morning, perhaps about a difficult conversation we need to have. That's holding the glass. But then, instead of putting it down and focusing on the task at hand, we carry it with us. We ruminate on it while we drive, while we work, while we eat. We are holding the glass for hours. By the time the conversation actually happens, we are already exhausted and burdened by the perceived weight of it. We make a mistake and feel a flash of guilt. That's the glass. But instead of learning the lesson, forgiving ourselves, and moving on, we carry that mistake for years. It becomes part of our identity. We are holding the glass for so long that our arm has become paralyzed by shame. We are weighed down by the past. The practice of putting the glass down is the essence of mindfulness and letting go. It does not mean ignoring your problems. It means dealing with them when it is time to deal with them, and then consciously releasing them from your mind when it is not. How do we do this? We can use our breath as a tool. When you notice you are caught in a loop of worry, you can consciously say to yourself, "Ah, I am holding the glass." Then take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, visualize yourself gently placing the glass down on a nearby table. Feel the sense of relief in your metaphorical arm. Then bring your full attention to whatever is in front of you in the present moment. The feeling of your feet on the floor, the taste of your food, the work on your screen. You may have to put the glass down 100 times a day. The habit of holding on is strong. But each time you do it, you are building a new muscle, the muscle of letting go. This practice is an act of profound self-compassion. You are refusing to torture yourself with the weight of your own thoughts. You are recognizing that peace is not found in a life without any glasses of water to pick up, but in the wisdom of knowing when and how to put them down. Take a moment right now. What glass are you holding? Is it a worry about the future, a resentment from the past, a stress about your finances or your health? Acknowledge it, see it clearly. And now, with your next exhale, gently, mindfully put the glass down. You can always pick it up again later if you need to, but for now, let your arm be light, let your mind be free. Part 20. No water, no moon. We have explored how our minds create reality and how carrying our thoughts can weigh us down. We conclude this section of our journey with a beautiful, poetic image that encapsulates the relationship between our mind and the ultimate truth we seek. It is the Zen phrase, "No water, no moon." A student once came to a Zen master expressing his frustration. "Master," he said, "I have been meditating for years. I try so hard to still my mind, to make it calm and clear like a placid lake, so that it can reflect the moon of enlightenment. But my mind is never still. Thoughts are like constant ripples on the surface. I try to stop them, but the effort of trying creates more ripples. I am exhausted, and I feel I will never see the moon." The master listened, and then he told the student a story about another master who lived by a lake. This master taught his students that the mind is like the water, and truth or enlightenment is like the moon in the sky. When the water is still, the moon's reflection appears perfectly. One of his students took this teaching very literally. Every night, he would go down to the lake and try to still the water. He would try to stop the wind from blowing. He would try to shoo away the insects that created ripples. He would sit there, filled with anxiety, trying to force the water into a state of perfect, glassy stillness so he could finally get the moon's reflection. Of course, he never succeeded. His very effort disturbed the water. Seeing his students struggle, the master came down to the lake one night. He didn't try to still the water. Instead, he simply pointed up at the sky. "The moon," he said, "has been there all along." He then shared a poem with his student. "The water is the mind. The moon is the truth. When the mind is busy, the moon is obscured. But seek not to still the water. For when there is no water, there is no moon." The phrase, "no water, no moon," is a profound and subtle teaching that turns our usual spiritual goals upside down. We, like the student, often approach the search for peace as a project. The project is to calm our minds. We believe our mind is an obstacle, a turbulent body of water that is blocking us from seeing the moon of peace or truth. We think, if only I could get rid of my thoughts, then I would be peaceful. We try to suppress the water. The Master's teaching reveals the flaw in this approach. The moon we are looking for is not the moon in the sky, some distant, separate truth. The moon we can experience is the reflection in the water. The water of our mind is not an obstacle to the truth. It is the very medium in which the truth can be perceived. Without the water, there can be no reflection. Without your living, conscious mind, there is no experience of peace. To try and destroy or suppress the mind is to destroy the very possibility of enlightenment. So what is the answer? The answer lies in shifting our focus from the reflection to the moon itself. It is to understand, as the Master pointed out, that the moon has been there all along. Peace is not something you achieve in the future when your mind is finally still. Peace is the fundamental nature of reality, and it is present right now, just as the moon is always in the sky, even on a cloudy night. The practice, then, is not an aggressive stilling of the water. It is a gentle settling. When you leave a glass of muddy water alone, the sediment naturally settles to the bottom, and the water becomes clear. You don't have to do anything to it. Similarly, when we sit in meditation, the practice is not to fight our thoughts. It is to simply let them be, to watch them arise and pass without grasping onto them, without pushing them away. We let the mind sediment naturally settle. In doing so, moments of clarity, moments of stillness will naturally appear. The reflection of the moon will be seen, not because we forced it, but because we allowed the conditions for it to appear. This is a practice of trust. Trusting that you don't need to fix or get rid of your mind. Trusting that your consciousness is not a mistake. It is the very field in which peace can be known. So let go of the struggle. Stop trying to still the water. Instead, turn your attention to the vast, silent, ever-present sky of awareness in which your thoughts and feelings are arising. Acknowledge that the moon, the potential for peace, clarity, and wisdom, is always there. Then, simply allow the water of your mind to be as it is. When you stop fighting with it, it will, in its own time, grow still. And you will see, reflected in the heart of your own consciousness, the beautiful, serene moon that has been patiently waiting for you all along. Part 21. The First Principle. We have journeyed through many profound ideas, from the emptiness of our reactions to the vastness of our own minds. We have contemplated abstract koans and found beauty in cracked teacups. After all this, a natural question arises. What is the most important thing? What is the fundamental teaching, the first principle of all this wisdom? Our next story addresses this question with startling simplicity. A scholar and government official, a man of high rank and great learning, once visited the Zen master Ikkyu. The official was a student of Zen, but his mind was accustomed to hierarchies, lists, and intellectual understanding.
He wanted to grasp the ultimate truth in a way he could categorize and comprehend. "Master," he said with great seriousness, "I have studied the sutras and the commentaries, but I wish to hear it from you directly. What is the very first principle of Zen? What is its most fundamental truth?" Ikkyu, who was known for his unconventional and direct style, did not offer a quote from a scripture or a complex philosophical statement. He was in the middle of enjoying a simple meal. He picked up a piece of pickled radish with his chopsticks, took a crunchy bite, and chewed it with obvious relish. He then looked at the waiting official and said, with a simple, matter-of-fact tone, "This radish is delicious." The official was taken aback. He was expecting a profound secret of the universe, and instead he got a comment about a vegetable. He felt the master was either toying with him or had missed the gravity of his question. "Master," he pressed, "I am not asking about radishes. I am asking about the first and highest principle of the spiritual path."
Ikkyu swallowed his mouthful of radish, looked the official directly in the eye, and replied, "The first principle of Zen is to be completely 100% present, right here, right now, with whatever you are doing." At this moment, for me, that is the deliciousness of this radish. The scholar was humbled. He suddenly understood that he had been seeking the first principle everywhere except for the one place it could ever be found, in the immediacy of his own present moment experience. This story beautifully dismantles our tendency to search for peace and truth in abstract ideas. We think the first principle must be a grand concept, a secret formula, or a complicated theory. We chase it in books, in lectures, and in our own minds, always looking for something other than what is happening right now. Ikkyu's teaching is a radical call to return home to the present. The highest truth is not out there somewhere, it is right here. It is the feeling of the breath entering your lungs. It is the warmth of the sun on your skin. It is the taste of the food you are eating. It is the sound of my voice as it enters your ears. The first principle is this: to be fully present with the taste of a radish is to be fully alive. In that moment of pure presence, there is no past, no future, no anxiety, no regret. There is only the direct, vivid, undeniable reality of the experience itself. This is enlightenment in its most practical form. It is the end of seeking. We spend so much of our lives being somewhere else. When we are eating, we are thinking about work. When we are working, we are thinking about our vacation. When we are on vacation, we are worrying about the emails piling up at home. We are never where we are. We are constantly abandoning the first principle for the sake of some mental projection. The practice this story invites is exquisitely simple. Whatever you are doing, do it completely. When you are walking, just walk. Feel the ground beneath your feet. When you are listening to someone, just listen. Give them the gift of your full, undivided attention. When you are drinking a glass of water, just drink. Feel its coolness, its wetness. This is not about making ordinary moments special. It is about discovering that they already are special when we bother to show up for them. The sacred is not hidden in a temple or a sutra. It is hidden in the plain sight of our everyday lives. Don't seek for answers in the future. Don't look for peace in a concept. The first principle is always under your feet. It is always at the tip of your tongue. It is always here. Take one conscious breath. Feel the air as it comes in and feel it as it goes out. For the duration of that single breath, you are practicing the highest first principle of Zen. It is as simple and as profound as that. Part 22. The Zen of Watering a Plant. If the first principle is to be fully present with whatever we are doing, then it follows that any activity, no matter how mundane, can become a profound spiritual practice.
Let us now explore this idea through the simple, silent act of caring for a living thing. Let's call it the Zen of watering a plant. Imagine a person who decides to keep a small plant on their windowsill. At first, it is just an object, a piece of decor, but they commit to the practice of caring for it with mindful attention. The practice begins with seeing, not just glancing at the plant, but truly seeing it. They notice the precise shade of green of its leaves. They observe the delicate network of veins. They see how the leaves turn slightly towards the light. They notice the texture of the soil, the simple form of the clay pot. In this moment of pure seeing, the plant is no longer just a plant. It is a unique, living being. The practice continues with the act of watering. They don't just dump water into the pot while thinking about something else. The act becomes a ceremony. They feel the weight of the watering can. They listen to the gentle sound of the water as it pours out and darkens the soil. They watch it sink in, trusting that it is giving the plant exactly what it needs. There is no rush. There is only the gentle, life-giving act. This is a practice of generosity and care. Over time, they learn the plant's rhythm. They learn to recognize the subtle droop of the leaves that says, "I am thirsty." They learn to feel the soil to know if it is dry or damp. They are not following a rigid schedule, but are in a responsive relationship with another living being. They are practicing intuitive wisdom and paying attention. Then, a new leaf begins to unfurl. They watch its slow, patient emergence over days. It is a tiny miracle, a testament to the silent, persistent force of life. In watching the leaf unfurl, they practice patience and witness the beauty of slow, organic growth.
Sometimes, a leaf turns yellow and falls off. The person does not see this as a failure. They see it as a natural part of the plant's life cycle. They gently remove the dead leaf, understanding that letting go is as important as growing. In this, they practice acceptance of impermanence, the wabi-sabi of life and death. This simple, repetitive act of watering a plant becomes a profound meditation. It teaches presence, patience, and care. It teaches about the cycles of growth and decay. It connects the person to the natural world, even if it's just a small pot on a city windowsill. It becomes an anchor in their day, a moment of quiet sanity away from the rush and the noise of the human world. The plant becomes a mirror. On days when the person is stressed and rushed, they might overwater or neglect the plant. The plant's health reflects their own inner state. It gently teaches them about themselves. On days when they are calm and present, the act of caring for the plant deepens that calm. This is what it means to integrate practice into life. You don't need a special cushion or a silent room. Your kitchen sink can be your monastery. Washing the dishes can be a meditation on cleanliness and order. Folding the laundry can be a practice of care for your family. Driving to work can be a practice of patience and awareness. The plant is not a metaphor. It is a real teacher. But the lesson is universal. Choose one simple recurring task in your daily life. It could be making your bed, brewing your coffee, or brushing your teeth. And decide to perform that one task each day with the same mindful attention you would give to watering a precious plant.
Do it slowly. Pay attention to your senses. Do it with a sense of care and respect. Don't look for a grand insight. Just be present for the task itself. This is how the first principle becomes a living reality. You are not just watering a plant, you are cultivating the garden of your own mind. Part 23. The Path of Ashes. Living a life of presence doesn't protect us from loss. The cycles of growth and decay that we see in a plant also govern our own lives. Things we love will come to an end. How do we walk the path of ashes with a Zen mind? Our next story illustrates this with profound simplicity. There was a great Zen master named Biko who lived in a beautiful wooden temple he had built himself over many decades. It was a place of serene beauty, filled with precious scriptures and art, and beloved by all the surrounding villagers. One night, due to a faulty lamp, a fire broke out. It spread quickly through the ancient wood. The monks and villagers rushed to help, but the flames were too powerful. They could only stand and watch in horror as their magnificent temple, the work of a lifetime, was consumed by a raging inferno and burned to the ground. The next morning, the sun rose on a scene of total devastation. All that remained was a smoking, blackened patch of earth and a pile of ashes. The students were weeping, and the villagers were in despair. Their beautiful sanctuary was gone. They found the master, Biko, sitting on a warm rock, looking out at the smoldering ruins. He was not weeping. He was not wringing his hands. There was a look of calm, peaceful contemplation on his face.
One of his senior students, his own face streaked with tears and soot, approached him. "Master," he cried out, "everything is gone. Decades of your work, our sacred texts, our home, it has all turned to ash. How can you be so calm?" Biko turned to his student and smiled a faint, gentle smile. He pointed with his chin towards the horizon, which was now visible where the temple roof used to be. "You are right," the master said, his voice quiet and clear. "Everything is gone. But now," he added, his eyes twinkling, "we have a much better view of the moon." This story is a powerful teaching on non-attachment and the ability to find opportunity in the heart of loss. Biko's calmness does not come from being unfeeling. He surely loved his temple. It was his life's work. His peace comes from a deep, experiential understanding of impermanence. He knows, not just as an idea but in his bones, that all things are transient. Buildings, possessions, relationships, even our own bodies are subject to change and decay. He did not fight this fundamental truth, and so when it manifested in this dramatic way, it did not shatter his inner peace. His reaction is the culmination of a lifetime of practice. He is not clinging to the past. He is not lost in the story of what was. He is fully present in the new reality. And in this new reality, he immediately finds something of value, a better view of the moon. The moon, as we have discussed, represents ultimate truth, beauty, and the quiet peace of the present moment. The temple, as beautiful and valuable as it was still a thing. It was a form. In a way, its very structure blocked the view of the formless, ever-present sky. The fire, in its destructive power, has paradoxically created an opening. It has cleared the way for a more direct, unobstructed view of what truly matters. This is a lesson of profound alchemy. It is the ability to transform the ashes of our losses into a path forward. When a long-term relationship ends, a career path is blocked, or our health fails, it can feel like our own personal temple has burned to the ground. Our instinct is to grieve for what was, to stare at the ashes in despair. The Zen mind, the mind of Biko, invites us to do something different. It invites us to accept the reality of the loss completely. To feel the sadness, yes, but not to get lost in it. And then, it invites us to lift our gaze from the smoking ruins and ask the question, What is the view that has opened up for me now? The end of a job can open up the view to a new passion. The end of a relationship can open up the view to a deeper understanding of oneself. A health crisis can open up the view to a profound appreciation for the simple gift of being alive. This is not about pretending that loss isn't painful. It is about refusing to be defined by it. It is about having the wisdom and the courage to find the moon in the new empty space. It is understanding that every ending is also a clearing, a new beginning, an opportunity for a much, much better view. Think of a loss you have experienced. The smoke may have long since cleared, but are you still staring at the ashes? Can you, just for a moment, lift your gaze? Look around the empty space it left behind. Is there a moon shining there that you hadn't noticed before? Part 24, The Parable of the Raft. We have journeyed through so many stories, concepts, and practices. We have explored the empty boat, the farmer's luck, the sound of one hand, and the path of ashes. As we near the end of our voyage, it is crucial to understand the purpose of all these teachings. This brings us to one of the Buddha's most famous parables, the parable of the raft. A man is on a journey and comes to the edge of a great wide river. The shore he is on is dangerous and full of suffering. The other shore is safe, peaceful, and free from suffering. But there is no bridge and no ferry to take him across. The man, being resourceful, decides to build a raft. He gathers branches, reeds, and vines and lashes them together. Then, using his hands and feet, he paddles his simple raft and painstakingly makes his way across the turbulent water. Finally, with great effort and relief, he arrives safely on the other shore. Now, the Buddha asked his monks, what should this wise man do with the raft? Should he say to himself, "This raft has been so useful to me, it saved my life. I will now lift it onto my shoulders and carry it with me on the rest of my journey"? "No, Lord," the monks replied, "that would be a heavy burden and a foolish thing to do." "Exactly," the Buddha said. "The wise man would think, this raft has served its purpose. I am grateful for it, but I no longer need it." He would then leave the raft on the riverbank and continue his journey on land, light and unencumbered. So it is, the Buddha concluded, with my teachings. I have given you these teachings, this Dharma, for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of holding on to. They are like a raft. You should use them to cross the river of suffering to the shore of peace. But once you have arrived, you must be willing to let them go. You must even let go of the good teachings. This parable is a vital and humbling reminder for anyone on a spiritual path. The stories we have shared, the meditation techniques, the philosophies, all of it are tools. They are a raft. Their purpose is purely functional, to help us move from a state of confusion and turmoil to a state of clarity and peace. The danger is that we can fall in love with the raft. We can become attached to the stories, the rituals, the identity of being a spiritual person. We start carrying our practices around like a heavy badge of honor. We might use our knowledge to judge others who are on a different path or who have a different kind of raft. We can become so focused on maintaining and decorating our raft that we forget its purpose was simply to get us to the other shore. When this happens, the teachings, which were meant to be liberating, become another kind of prison. They become another set of rigid beliefs, another possession for the ego to cling to. To truly understand this parable is to hold all these Zen stories lightly. Use them. Let them inspire you. Let them point you in the right direction. But do not turn them into a dogma. Do not mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself. If the story of the empty boat helps you to release anger, wonderful, use it. But you don't need to carry the story around all day. The goal is to become the kind of person who no longer generates the anger in the first place. At that point, you no longer need the story. You have reached the shore. If the practice of mindful breathing helps you calm your anxiety, fantastic. But the goal is not to be a perfect breather. The goal is a life lived with less anxiety. The breath is the raft. A peaceful life is the other shore. This teaching is the ultimate act of letting go. It is the willingness to let go of the very path that brought you to freedom. It ensures that spirituality remains a dynamic, living process, not a static collection of beliefs. So as we approach our final story, hold this parable in your heart. Be grateful for the raft that has carried us this far. But be prepared, when the time is right, to leave it on the shore and walk freely into the landscape of your own life. Part 25. Chop wood, carry water. And so, we have arrived at our final destination, which is, of course, the very place where we began. We have crossed the great river. We have left the raft on the shore. What is left to do? This brings us back to the first and last principle of Zen life. A young monk went to a wise old master and asked, "Master, what did you do before you were enlightened?" The master replied, "Before I was enlightened, I would chop the wood for the fire and carry the water from the well." The young monk then asked, "And now, master, what do you do after you have attained enlightenment?" The master smiled and replied, "After I am enlightened, I chop the wood and carry the water." The young monk was confused. "But master," he said, "if you are doing the exact same things, then what is the difference? What has changed?" The master looked at him with deep, clear eyes. "Ah," he said, "everything." This simple exchange is the perfect culmination of our entire journey. It brings together all the threads we have woven: presence, non-attachment, compassion, and the integration of practice into daily life. The great secret of enlightenment is that you do not graduate from ordinary life. You do not float away into some ethereal realm, free from everyday tasks and responsibilities. The path does not lead you away from the world, it leads you back to the world, but with a profoundly different quality of being. Before enlightenment, the chopping of wood and the carrying of water are chores. They are means to an end. While chopping the wood, the mind is elsewhere. It is worrying about the future, regretting the past, dreaming of a more spiritual activity. The mind is filled with resistance, boredom, and desire. The person is not really there. After enlightenment, the chopping of wood and the carrying of water are no longer chores. They are meditations. They are the dance of life itself. When the enlightened master chops wood, there is only the chopping of wood. His mind is not somewhere else. He is fully present with the heft of the axe, the scent of the pine, the rhythm of the swing, the sharp crack as the wood splits. The act is complete in itself. There is no resistance, no desire for it to be over. It is not a means to an end. The means is the end. This is the great change. The external actions remain the same, but the internal state of the doer is transformed. The turmoil of the seeking, resisting mind has settled. What is left is a simple, clear, joyful presence that infuses every single action, no matter how mundane. This is the ultimate integration of all the stories we have shared. The master carries water with the acceptance of the farmer. He chops wood with the presence of Ikkyu tasting the radish. He interacts with his fellow monks with the compassion of Tonzan on the muddy road. He is not attached to the wood or the water,
like Rokon was not attached to his robes. He is simply doing what needs to be done, in this moment with his whole being. This is the promise of the path. Not that you will be freed from your life, but that you will be freed within your life. Your life may still contain challenges, losses, and difficulties. The wood may be knotty and the water bucket heavy, but your relationship to these things will change. You will learn to meet them with a peaceful heart and a steady mind. The goal was never to stop chopping wood and carrying water. The goal was to discover the profound peace and beauty that was hidden within those simple acts all along. So the journey does not end here. The journey begins here. It begins tomorrow morning when you wake up.
It begins with the first task of your day. Can you bring your whole self to it? Can you chop your wood? Can you carry your water? Can you do it with the simple, undivided attention of a master? The ongoing voyage. And so, our journey through these 25 stories comes to a close. We began with an empty boat, a reminder that the source of our peace lies within. We journeyed across the muddy roads of compassion. We sat with the indestructible beauty of the moon. We listened for the sound of one hand, and we have arrived here back in the simple, profound reality of chopping wood and carrying water. The greatest truth these stories offer is that the peace you have been seeking is not in some faraway land or some future state of perfection. It has been here with you all along, waiting patiently beneath the noise of your mind, like the moon waiting behind the clouds. These stories are not answers to be memorized, but keys to be used. Each one unlocks a different door within your own heart, a different room within your own consciousness. The real practice begins now, as you take this feeling of quiet presence with you back into the stream of your life. Thank you for sharing this time, for allowing your boat to travel alongside mine on this voyage of discovery. The waters of life will continue to have their currents and their storms, but my hope is that you now feel more confident in your ability to navigate them with a calm hand and a steady heart. If this journey has offered you a quiet harbor or a useful map, I warmly invite you to subscribe to The Empty Boat.
By doing so, we can ensure our vessels continue to travel these waters together, sharing stories and reminding each other of the shore of peace that is always within reach. For now, take a final, deep breath. Feel the peace you have cultivated. It is yours. Carry it with you. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering.